All right, kids, let's continue. Moving on to question 9. Number 9 says, Miss Allen's first period and second period classes each took the same history test. Their results are shown on the box plots below. Which statement correctly compares the two data sets? All right, so for me to even be able to compare these data sets, I've got to remember what the most important pieces are in a box plot. So let's really briefly review those. I'm going to just look at first period, the class, right? And I'm going to look at the different dots that I see on this box plot. So this first dot is my smallest data point. It's the smallest value in my box plot. And because it is right on top of the number 60, I know that my smallest value in this data set is a 60. And the farthest right-hand side dot is my largest value in my data set. We call it the maximum. And because it is sitting directly over, I don't know, let's say 90, in between 95 and 100, I'm going to call that about 97. That's the largest data point. Okay, so I don't know what all the first period test scores were, but I know that the lowest test score was a 60 and the highest test score was a 97 in the first period. The other parts of the box plot that are important, the next one is called the median. It's your middle number, and that's represented by that line that goes through this, this part of the box. So the middle number is 80, right? And then I can also pull what are called quartiles, right? So this line of the box right here is your first quartile. It's called Q1, and that is a 75. And then this part of the box right here, the far right side of the box, is called Q3, or your third quartile, and that's a 90. All right, so these are the 5 different pieces of information I can pull out of a box plot. And I can use those numbers to help me answer the different types of questions that are asked. All right, so we're going to actually start looking at the questions or the choices, and we're going to do math depending on what each choice suggests. Answer choice A says, Miss Allen's first period has a higher minimum score compared to her second period. So again, the minimum score is always the farthest left point on your box plot. Okay, so for first period, the minimum score is about a 60. And for her second period, the minimum score is about a 70. So Miss Allen's first period has a higher minimum score. Well, no, 60 is not higher than 70. So answer choice A is incorrect. Answer choice B says, the interquartile range is smaller in Miss Allen's first period. In order for me to figure this out, I need to figure out what the interquartile range is for both classes. Okay, so the interquartile range for her first period is found by doing this. You're going to look at only your first period's table or box plot. You're going to ignore the second period. Okay, and in order to find the interquartile range, what we do is we take our first quartile, whatever number that is, and our third quartile, whatever number that is, and we subtract them. So for her first period, I would do 90 minus 75. And I get whatever I get. I get 15. That is called the interquartile range. It's the distance in between the two lines that create your box. It's how far apart these two numbers are. All right, that's called the interquartile range. Now I'm going to do the same exact process for her second period class. So to find the IQR of her second period, I'm only going to look at the bottom box plot. So I'm going to block out the top one and forget about it for now. Okay, and I'm going to look for the box. And on the far left-hand side, the number underneath that is 80. And the far right-hand side is right above about 90, maybe 91. And I'm going to subtract those two. So I'm going to do 90 minus 80. So the interquartile range for her second period class is about 10. Okay, now I'm going to go look at the question. The question says the interquartile range is smaller in Miss Allen's first period class. 15 is not smaller than 10, so answer choice B is incorrect. All right, answer choice C says Miss Allen's second period has a greater range than her first period. It's not saying interquartile range, it's just saying range. Ladies and gents, the range, remember, is the distance from your minimum value to your maximum value. How far apart are those two numbers? That's called the range. So in order for us to find that, we're going to find out what our smallest value is and what our largest value is, and then we're going to subtract them, right? It's a little less intense than our interquartile range. So in her first period, the range is going to be from about 97 to about 60. And to get the range, we subtract. And 97 minus 60 is 37. Then to find the range of her second period class, I'm going to take the smallest value, which is 70. And I'm going to subtract it from the largest value, which is about 95. And 95 minus 70 is 25. So the question says, Miss Allen's second period has a greater range. 25 is not greater than 37. So answer choice C is incorrect. So it has to be answer choice D unless I've done something wrong. Hopefully when I look at answer choice D, it is correct. Let's see. The next question, D, says the median score of Miss Allen's second period is higher than her first. To find the median, all we need to do is to look for the line that cuts through the box. So in our first period class, it's this pink line that's cutting through the center of the box, which is right above 80. And in our second period class, the median is right here, which is right above 85. So it says the median score in Miss Allen's second period is higher than her first. 85 is higher than 80. So answer choice D is correct. All right, make sure that in your notes you're writing down what all of these words mean, where you find the median. Maybe you draw yourself a picture, right? Maybe you draw yourself a picture and somehow you identify where the median is in it. You say median. All right, you want to make sure that in your notes, you have all the important information about what each of these topics are: interquartile range, overall range, minimum. Okay, so you want to make sure that you've got all of that important stuff written down. If you need to rewind the video, listen to me again and write down that important information, go ahead and do that. Question number 10. Two groups of students took the same test. Their results are indicated in the dot plots below. Which statement is true? And they give us 4 choices. And again, this is going to be very similar to the last question where I'm going to need to go question by or answer choice by answer choice and figure out whether it's true or false. So answer choice A says, because group A has a lower minimum score than group B, it has a lower median as well. That's a lot of math to do. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to see if I can determine what the minimum scores of the groups are. So for group A, the minimum, I can find the minimum by looking at the dots that are all the way to the left of the graph. Okay, so the smallest data point in group A is above the number 75. That means the minimum of group A is 75. Excuse me, guys. Sorry about the coughing. For group B, the first dot is above the number 77. So the minimum of group B is 77. And it says, because group A has a lower minimum score of group B. Well, group A does have a lower score than group B. So far this one is checking out as okay. So in order for me to see if the rest of it is true, I have to do the second part. The second part says it has a lower median as well. Well, that's a whole different story. All right, I now need to make sure I know how to find the median on a dot plot. This takes a lot of work. Watch how I do it. To find the median, I am going to first put my numbers in order. I am going to look at the graph and I'm going to write the number I see that has dots above it the same number of times it has dots. Let me explain what that means. So I'm going to go to group A. I'm writing in red, so I'm talking about group A. I see 3 dots above the number 75. That means that the number 75 appeared 3 times in that data set. Okay, so I look at the number that has dots above it. I see how many dots there are, and I write that number down that number of times. Now I'm going to go to the next set of dots. Now I'm going to look at 76, and I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I have to write down the number 76 5 times. 76 once, twice, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times. Now I'm looking at 77. There are 3 of them. So 77 3 times. And now I'm looking at 78, and there are 1, 2, 3, 4 of them. So I'm going to write 78 4 times. Whoops, I wrote the number 4. Didn't mean to do that. Okay, so that's step 1. I have to first write out my data set. I have to know which numbers were in the data set. Step 2 to find the median is to cross out numbers. Okay, so step 2, I'm going to cross out my numbers from the left and the right side. Until I get to the middle number. All right, so unfortunately, all of these numbers are not in one line, so I'm going to just erase some and rewrite some to be able to fit them. Because I'm going to try and fit it all in one place so you can see better. So there were 3 75s. There were a couple more 76s. There were actually 5 of them. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm just trying to make room. And then there were 3 77s. I should have done this right the first time. And then I've got 4 78s. I'm getting small. So I can fit it all. Okay, so now it's all in one line. And another way to check to make sure you haven't messed this up is to count how many dots you have. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 data points. So I better have 15 numbers listed here. So I'm going to count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. That way I know I haven't skipped anything. Okay, so now I'm going to do this step 2. I'm going to cross them out in sets. 1 from the left and 1 from the right at the same, like not at the same time, but you know, I'm crossing them out in sets until I get to the middle number. All right, so my middle number is 76. That means my median of group 1 or group A is 76. Now we've got to do the same process for group B. All right, so I'm going to write down all of the numbers. I'm going back to step 1, right? I'm going to write down all the numbers that I see with dots above them. So there's a 77 I see at once. There are 4 78s, so I'm going to write it down 4 times. There are 2 79s. There's 1 80. I'm going to run out of room again. There's 3 81s. There's 1 82. There's 1 83. Shoot, there's 2 85s. I'm going to have to swerve 85 and 85. Okay, so I've got my data set again. I'm going to count how many data points there are, make sure I didn't miss anything. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. I have 15 data points here. Let's make sure I have 15 numbers listed. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Okay, so I've got all my data points. I'm now going to eliminate 2 at a time from the outside in until I get to my middle number. So my middle number is 80. Okay, so the median is 80. All right, now I'm going to go back to choice A and make sure that all of the parts of choice A are correct. All right, so choice A says, because group A has a lower minimum, which is true, 75 is lower than 77, it has a lower median as well. The median of A is 76, the median of B is 80, 76 is lower than 80, so that is a true statement. I actually am done. I know this is true. All right, but because I want to make sure you know how to find all the other parts of information, because the actual test question is going to be a little different than this, and maybe this will not be the right answer. I want to make sure you know how to make the other statements true or false. Okay, so make sure you pause the video and copy down what you need for the median if you haven't done that already. I'm going to move on to answer choice B. Answer choice B says, based on visual inspection, all that means is by looking at those 2 graphs, there is more variation in group B than group A. Okay, so variation means how far apart or how much spread there is. We're actually talking about a range. Whenever you see the word variation, you want to make sure you understand they're asking you for the range. And remember, to find the range, you take the biggest number in the data set and subtract the smallest number from it. All right, so I'm going to do that process for group A. For group A, the range I would find by doing the biggest number, which is 78, minus the smallest number, which is 75. So the range of group A is 3. The range of group B would be the biggest number, which is 85, minus the smallest number, which is 77. And 85 minus 77 is 8. 15 minus 7 is 8. All right. So the question says, based on visual inspection, there is more variation or more range in group B than group A. Here's the bad news, guys. This is also a true statement. I would take either of these 2 answers. A and B are correct. Let me make a note of that. Okay, so if you pick letter A or letter B, you would get this answer correct. Let's go to answer C. Good thing I checked it. Answer C says the median of group A is higher than the median of group B. Well, we already did the median. We had to do that for question A. The median of A is 76. The median of B is 80. 76 is not higher than 80, so C is incorrect. All right, let's check D. Answer choice D says the range of scores is greater in group A than group B. The range of scores is greater in group A than group B. 3 is not greater than 8, so that is false. So I would say that D is false. So I would take A or B as correct answers. Pause the video, copy down what you'd like. Moving on to question 11. All right, question 11. I'm going to be honest with you guys. This graphic is identical to the test question, and I do not like this graphic. I actually have already emailed our district math person about this question because I think the graphs are unfair. So I'm going to train you on how I want you to read these graphs. You should never see graphs like this in real life because the way that they are written is not easy to read. It's misleading. Okay, so let me explain why. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to read the question. It says, the histograms below represent the number of laps run by 2 random samples of students in group A and group B. Which statements are true? Check all that are correct. Okay, so for the first histogram on the left, group A, I am supposed to look at the numbers on the bottom, which represent the number of laps, and I'm supposed to look at the number of students, which is represented by your vertical numbers going up along the side on the left side. And I'm supposed to figure out how many laps were swam, how many laps each swimmer did in each group. Okay, so I'm going to focus my attention here, trying to figure out what the heck each bar represents. And this is where I got frustrated. The number 0 is literally right on the line here, and the number 2 is literally right on this line here. So I don't know if this is supposed to be 0, and this is supposed to be 1, and this is supposed to be 2, or if this is supposed to be 1, this is supposed to be 2, and this is supposed to be 3. It's misleading. The numbers underneath those graphs should be directly under the bar, not under the line. So like I would have liked to have seen the number 2 sitting directly beneath this column for it to be clear to me. All right, so because I don't really know, I don't think this is a really fair question. I'm going to tell you how I want you to look at this question and answer this question so that you can do the same thing on the actual test. So it's a good thing you're watching these videos, okay? I'm going to tell you that you are to assume that this blank column right here represents 0, and that this tall column right here is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10 are blank. All right, so the first column that is actually drawn represents 1 lap. You need to know that for the actual test. If I didn't do this recording, you would have probably been like, I don't know what that means, all right? So this first bar here represents 1 lap swum, and the top of the bar means that 4 students actually swam 1 lap. Okay, so we're gonna go with that understanding. I am trying to make this as thin as possible so I can write it in. So this is 1, this is 2, 3, that's a 3, that's a bad 3, but it is 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then I'm going to do the same thing on the next graph. This is going to be 1, 2, 3. There's no 4s. 5, 6, 7, 8, and there's no 9 or 10. All right, so now that I've got that part figured out and I know what each bar represents, I'm going to now look at my answer choices and determine whether they're true or false based on each question. This is a DOK 3. This is one of the hardest questions on the test because you have to check all that are correct. If you miss one or add one in, you're going to get the whole thing wrong. And this question requires a ton of math. So we're going to go slow. Prepare yourself. This is a big question. Here we go, guys. All right. Choice A, group A has a mean that is 1 more than the mean of group B. Remember, the mean is the average. And to find the average, I first add all my data points together. Then step 2 is to divide that answer by the number of data points you added together. Okay, that's how you find a mean. So I'm going to try and put a little group over here. I'm going to call this group A. Let's just do A. All right, and I'm going to call this group B. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to find the mean. Let's undo that. All right. It's going to take me a minute to get it set up. You should probably be copying down notes at this point anyway. Okay, so the first category I'm going to do is mean. All right, and remember to find the mean, I have to add all the data points together, and then I have to divide by the total number of data points I did add. So this is kind of complicated, right? In order for me to even get my data points, I have to really understand how histograms work. So I want to explain to you what this column means. Again, this column right here represents the number of laps that were swum. I'm sorry, I still struggle with that. That the kids swam. That represents that one lap was completed and 4 kids did 1 lap. So when I start to put my data set together, I have to list the number 1 4 times because 4 kids swam 1 lap. Right? Then I'm going to look at this column right here, which represents swimming 2 laps. And I'm going to figure out that 3 kids did 2 laps. So I'm going to write down the number 2 3 times because 3 kids did 2 laps and so on. All right, so now I'm going to go and look at 3 laps. There was only 1 kid that did 3 laps, so I'm going to write down the number 3 once. 4 kids did, 4 laps was done by 3 kids, right? So I'm going to write down the number 3 times because 4 of them did it. Then 5 laps was done by 1. 6 laps was done by 1, 7 laps was done by 1, and 8 laps was done by 1. And that was easy because they're all the same height. Okay, so that's my data set for group A. So I am now going to have to find the mean. I'm going to add all of these numbers together. So I'm going to add 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2 and so on. And when I add them all together, I get 51. I'm not a genius. I did this before. Okay, so I added these all together. I get 51. And now step 2 says I have to take that 51 and I have to divide it by however many data points I have. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. So I'm going to divide 51 by 15 and I get 3.4. That's what we call the average. So the average or the mean of group A was 3.4. All right, now before I go to group B, what I actually want to do now that I've got all of this written down is I'm going to just look at what other pieces of data or what other pieces of central tendency I need. And so what do I mean by that? I mean, I'm going to look at what the other questions ask, all right? The other questions are asking me for the median. This one talks about the mean again. This one talks about the median, and this one talks about the mean. So while I have this set of numbers written down right here, I may as well find the median because it's the other type of question I'm being asked. So median. All right. So I'm going to find the median. And remember, we just did this on the last test question. So to find the median, I start crossing them out from the outside in. Again, these are all not listed in one line. So let me rewrite them. I know it's annoying. 1, 1, 1, 1. 3 2s, 1 3, 3 4s, a 5, a 6, a 7, and an 8. Okay, so there's my data set. I just wrote it all in one place, so it's easier to cross out. Now I'm going to cross from the outside in until I get to a middle number. And my middle number is 3. So the median of group A is 3. All right, I'm going to now do the exact same process for group B. I have to find the median and the mean. I'm going to have to go to the chart and figure out what numbers to write down. So I'm kind of starting all over. All right, for group B, I have this bar again. Let's just remember what it represents. This bar right here represents 1 lap. And there are 4 people who swam 1 lap. So I'm going to write down the number 1 4 times. Okay, the next bar here represents swimming 2 laps, and 1 person swam 2 laps. So I write down the number 2 1 time. And so on. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and speed up this process a little bit. You might need to pause every time I do it to make sure it makes sense to you. 3 laps were swum by 1 person. 4 laps, nobody has a bar there. That means no students swam 4 laps, meaning I don't even write down that number. Okay, 5 laps was 2 students, so I have a 5 lap and a 5 lap. 6 was 4, so 4 sixes. 7 was by 1 kid, 1 7, and 8, there are 2. All right, so there's my data set. I'm going to find the mean, and that means I'm going to add all these together, 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 2. Why is there a 1 there? I don't know what that 1 is doing there. Shouldn't be a 1 there. All right, let me triple check now, because I had some strange number written right here, and I don't know why. There are 4 1s. Oh, I skipped a 3. It was supposed to be a 3. For 4 1s, there was 1 2, and there's 1 3, so there should be a 3 right here. Okay. So now I add all these digits together, 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 5 plus 5, and so on. And I get my answer. And when I add those all together, I get 66. And then I'm going to divide that by however many numbers there are. I think there's still 15. Let me check. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. There are. 66 divided by 15 is about 4.4. So the mean of group B is 4.4. Right, now I'm going to find the median. And to find the median, remember, you cross out from the outside in. So cross out a 1 and an 8, another 1 and another 8, and so on. So the median of group B was 5. All right, so the heavy work here was really just doing all of the math and finding those 2 measures of central tendency, finding the mean and the median. Now I can go through and say whether each of these answers are true or false. Okay, I'm going to tell you that answer choice C is a doozy. So we're going to skip C and we're going to do the other 4 first. All right, so answer choice A says group A has a mean that is 1 more than the mean of group B. Is 3.4 1 more than 4.4? Says the mean, which is 3.4, is 1 more plus 1 than the mean of group B, which is 4.4. Yes, I could do this on a calculator, and I can do 3.4 plus 1, and I'll see if I get 4.4. And I do. That's a true statement, so A is correct. Okay, group B. Answer choice B. Group B has the same median as group A. Well, you can see that's false. Right, the median of group A is 3, the median of group B is 5, so that is false. I'm going to skip C. We'll come back to it. Answer choice D. Group A has a median that is 2 less than the median of group B. Group A has a median that is 2 less than the median of group B. So group B minus 2 is supposed to give me group A. And 5 minus 2 is 3. That is true. Right, so I'm going to call that one true. And then the last answer choice says group B has a mean that is 1 more than that of group A. And group B's mean is 1 more than group A's, right? Group B's is 4.4, which is 1 more than 3.4. So that's true. I think answer choice A and answer choice E are the same. They're just written backwards. One's just backwards of the other. Okay, so we got those 3. Here's the issue. Answer choice C is kind of crazy. So we're going to have to do some pretty intense math. The good news is that we've got calculators to help us, right? Okay, so answer choice C says group B has a mean that is approximately half of its range. Oh, shoot, I forgot to find the range. So let me add in range down here. And I'm going to find the range. It's not going to be too hard. Remember, the range is the biggest number minus the smallest number. The biggest number for group A that is graphed is, I think, 8, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, the biggest number is 8 and the smallest number was 1. So the range for group A is 8 minus 1, which is 7. The range for group B, again, we're doing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So the range for group B is going to be 8 minus 1 as well. So they both have a range of 7. Okay, just so we know what their ranges are. They're both 7. And now we need to do this math. It says group B has a mean. So group B's mean, which is 4.4, that is half of its range. To find half of something, we divide it by 2. 4.4 divided by 2 is how I would find half of its half of it. So I'm going to do 4.4 divided by 2. I actually get 2.2. Group B has a mean that is approximately half of its range. It's, oh, I did that backwards. I did that wrong, right? It's saying half of its range. I have to take the number 7, the range, and divide it by 2. Half of its range. So the range is 7. 7 divided by 2 is 3.5. And it says group B has a mean. That is that. Group B's mean is 4.4, not 3.5. So this is false. So that means this can't possibly be an answer. However, I know I just yelled at you. On the actual test, they are calling this correct. They are saying, yes, this is true. I don't know why. But they did say that this is a true statement. They included it as a possible answer choice. So I'm instructing you to include it as an answer, even though it is done incorrectly. Otherwise, you are going to get the entire question marked wrong. Now, remember, these answer choices on the actual test are going to be different than what I've written on this particular practice test. They are not going to say the exact same thing, nor is the data going to be the exact same. Like, you are still, if you are watching this practice video and you are taking notes, all of this is going to be the same on the actual test and on this practice test. You won't have to redo any of this math. I've done it all for you. All right, so this information up at the top, let me box it in bright red, really thick, so you know what I'm talking about. All of this on the actual test and this test are identical. So we've already done all of that math together. The hard part is reading these answer choices and making sure that you are saying true or false based off of what these new answer choices say, right? So these are going to say something different than what they're saying on the practice test. However, whatever answer choice looks like this, it's got this long half of and a third of, you are going to include it as true as part of your answer choices. Even though it's not going to work out mathematically and you're going to say that's not true, you're still going to include it or you're going to get the whole thing marked wrong. I'm sorry, I've already complained. Nobody fixed it. That's where we are. Good thing you're watching these videos. Okay, pause the video, copy down what you need. We are going to move on.